We've been making a lot of beef jerky and carnivore chips in our smoker lately, but some people have messaged us and asked, how can I do it in a food dehydrator? So in today's video, we're gonna review the London Sunshine 10 tray food dehydrator, and we're gonna show you how to make your own carnivore chips. Hey, what's up family? I'm Joe and I'm one half of Two Crazy Ketos. Here on Two Crazy Ketos, we do different things like recipe videos and we do product reviews. We talk about various keto topics, and every Monday we go live on Keto Beyond the Couch because life exists beyond the couch. Now you can find us on all kinds of social media platforms like Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And we have a website which is twocrazyketos.com, and that's where you're gonna find all of our different recipes. Now we do upload at least 5 new videos every single week, so make sure you subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to hit that little bell button, this way you are notified every time we upload a new video. So like I said in the intro, recently we've been making a lot of meat snacks. About 90 to 95% of our diet does come from meat, and when we're on the road, we like to have really good portable grab and go meat options. So we resort to things like beef jerky or meat sticks. And of course, our favorite thing is our carnivore chips. The only thing is we generally make ours in our electric smoker. And we understand a lot of people don't have an electric smoker. Maybe they don't have room for it, or they live in a colder climate where you can't barbecue all year long. And also some of the electric smokers can get very expensive. And we've talked about the fact that you can make these things in a food dehydrator. So we decided in today's video, we were going to show you how to make our carnivore chips in a food dehydrator. Along with that, we're going to review the London Sunshine 10 tray electric food dehydrator. Currently, we have a small 6 tray Kasori food dehydrator. The thing is it's a little small for what we're looking for because we want to make a lot of meat snacks at once. And during the Black Friday sales, we were actually looking to get a larger 10 tray food dehydrator, and the one we were looking for happened to be sold out. And then when we did the review of the London Sunshine Grill, which I'll leave a link for right up here, we noticed on their website that they had a 10 tray electric food dehydrator. So we reached out to them and asked them, hey, would you mind if we reviewed it? And they said, absolutely. So that's what we have here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do a quick unboxing, take a look at what's inside of it, get it all set up, and then after that, we're gonna show you how to make some carnivore chips and maybe even a couple other things. Okay, so first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna unbox it, and we're gonna try to do this pretty quickly. It actually came in a larger cardboard box. And so let's see, what do we have here? So we do have, right up on top, we have an owner's manual, and we have some sheets, and then let's see, we do have over here some stainless steel racks. I think what we're gonna do is we're just gonna go ahead and get this out of the box. Okay, unboxing was pretty simple. The only thing I would recommend is rather than opening it up the way I did, which was cutting off the top and then lifting the unit out of the box, I would actually recommend cutting the bottom and then placing it on the ground and lifting the box off over the dehydrator. It's a little bit on the heavy side, not super heavy, but it's more of like awkward to get it out of the box. So I think it would be a lot easier if you lifted the box off of the unit itself. But getting into the unit, I can tell you I'm already very impressed with the build quality without really even diving into it yet. Years ago, we had an Excalibur dehydrator, and I know a lot of people consider them to be like top of the line. I honestly wasn't impressed with them, which is why I ended up selling ours. It was all made out of plastic. I didn't like the door on it. In fact, the door on ours cracked, so I had to sell it like with a cracked door on it. I just wasn't really impressed with the Excalibur, and immediately looking at this one, it's all metal. So you got stainless steel on the outside, which is great, except for it can be a fingerprint magnet. Doesn't bother me, but I know it does bother some people. Moving into the front, we've got a digital control panel right up here on the front. So I like the fact that I can look right here and see it. I don't have to go searching to the back here like on my old dehydrator. Glass door. I really am impressed with that. Again, our old, like Excalibur had a plastic door and I hated that. And it wasn't even attached. You had to lift it off and on. So I like the fact that this is on a hinge and it's glass. And also it's got like these magnetic hatches, which seem to be pretty secure. So it's just not gonna fly open. Moving inside, all metal inside, so that's going to make it for super easy cleanup. There's a central fan in the back on the wall. I really like that. That's going to give even heating and drying. And then there is like a mesh wire in front of the fan so that you can't put your hand on there. Let's take a look at some of the things it came with. So it did come with, like, they call this like a fruit roll-up, like jelly kind of tray, but you can also use this as a liner on the bottom. So we have that. Then it did come with these, which is, again, pretty impressive because a lot of times you have to buy these separately. These are like for doing things like fruit roll-ups, or if you have smaller items that are gonna fall through the wire on your regular trays. So you would put this on top and that's gonna help, but they're still like have lots of holes in there to help with the airflow in there. So I like the fact that they give them to you. In fact, our other unit, I think it came with one. So the fact that you have like as many of these as you do trays, that's a nice bonus. And then finally, metal racks. I love the metal racks. Again, our old Dehydrator had plastic racks. They were a pain to clean. I didn't like them. I really, really like the metal racks. This is very similar to our smaller Kasori one. If you're curious on the size of these are 15.5 inches by 15. So, and we've got 10 of these racks. Now, to give you an example or an idea of the difference, because again, I'll pull out the smaller one later on. So this is my Kasori 6 tray, and this is gonna be the London Sunshine 10 tray. So you can see you've got a lot more room on here to be able to put a lot more meat sticks. Rest of the dimensions and specifications on this is it does have a 24-hour timer on it. It's got a max temperature of 167 degrees and it is a 1,000-watt unit. So what we need to do now is I'm gonna go ahead off camera and I'm gonna clean it. You need to wash all of your racks and everything, kind of wipe down the inside, and then you're supposed to do like a 30-minute burn just to burn off any of like the factory oils or anything like that. And from there, we're gonna go ahead and make the carnivore chips. So once I get it all clean, I do the burn, we'll come back and I'll show you how to do the carnivore chips. So I've washed all the trays and I've done the initial burning on the London Sunshine. Now it's time to do the carnivore chips. And this is gonna be very similar to how we did it in the video on how to make them in a smoker. We're just gonna have to make a couple of modifications because when we're doing it in the smoker in the oven, I'm going at a higher temperature of about 180 degrees and the max temperature on a food dehydrator is 167. So we'll have to make a couple of adjustments, but we'll talk about that as we get to those steps. What I thought would be fun is figure out how much can we dehydrate in the London Sunshine 10 tray dehydrator at one time. So I know in my smoker, I can get just about 2.5 pounds, 2 pounds of meat in there. And in my smaller food dehydrator, I can get 1.5 pounds of meat in there. So I've got a whole bunch of pre-sliced ribeye here. Our Publix had ribeye roasts on sale for $5.99 a pound. So we bought a lot of them. And I've already gone ahead and pre-sliced a bunch of them into the thickness that I want. And what I do is I pre-slice them and then I separate them all with the parchment paper. And this way, whenever we want to make the carnivore chips, we don't have to pull out the slicer every time. I've already got them pre-sliced in the freezer. We pull them out, we lay them on the tray. So I thought it'd be fun to figure out how much we can get in here. Just to give you a little idea, what I have found is I get just less than 50% of whatever the starting weight is. So if I start with about 2 pounds of meat, I generally end up with somewhere around 14 to 15 ounces of actual carnivore chips. So we're gonna weigh out each one of these piles as we go along, and then we're gonna figure out how much we've put in there, and then we'll weigh out how much we get out. And that'll give us an idea of how long would it take us to, if you're only doing like carnivore chips or meat snacks, to make having a food dehydrator worth it. So we're gonna start off with this pile right here. I've got a food scale over here. Put a paper towel on there, zero it out. And this first pile is 24 ounces. So we're gonna go ahead and just start laying this out. Now I know when I lay it on my smaller food dehydrator, I can generally only get about 4 pieces because it is only like, I think like 11 by 12 or something like that. So I'm curious to see like how many pieces can I get on this. Not only do we have more trays, but we also have a lot more room on each tray because they're significantly larger. So we're just gonna go ahead and lay all of these pieces out. It's okay if they get close because they're gonna shrink as we're going along. Next batch is 25 ounces. So we're on our third pile of meat. We have 3 trays left. This has 23 ounces on there. So I don't think we're gonna get all this on there. We're gonna go ahead and fill out the trays and we'll just deduct. But so far, so we're just about 75 ounces of meat. Okay, we got about 77 ounces of meat onto the trays out of my 4 stacks. This is all I have left, so I will go ahead and vacuum seal this up, and we'll probably use it tomorrow. But 77 ounces, that's just over 4.5 pounds. So we should end up with just over 2 pounds of carnivore chips once we put these in a dehydrator and they're all done. So the last thing we need to do is salt them. So I have all of the stacks on top of each other, and then on the very bottom I have the drip tray, and I'm just going to take my Redmond salt and I am going to generously coat all of the meat. And then what I do is I literally just do each one and I put the tray to the bottom. And by doing that, what ends up happening is any salt that may fall through just goes to the ones below it. And I'm not wasting a whole bunch of salt, getting it on the counter, all that kind of stuff. So one thing you're gonna notice is that I really put the meat as close together as I could. And I did that for a reason. It's kind of for testing purposes. So in the smoker, the heat is on the bottom, it rises up through the top, and you can't put the meat really close together because you need the heat to come up from the bottom. It's the other reason you have to rotate those trays, otherwise the bottom is gonna cook faster than the top. On this dehydrator, the fan is in the back. So in theory, that should circulate the air around, so it doesn't matter if I haven't spaced the meat on here. So we're gonna go ahead and put it in here, and I actually am thinking that we might be just slightly over the time, even though we're cooking at a lower temperature, because we do have that fan running inside here. I know on my smaller one, it took a little bit more time, but not as much as I thought. So first thing we're gonna do is press the on button. We're gonna press the temperature button. We're gonna set this for 167 degrees. We're gonna press the time button, and we're gonna set this for 4 hours and 30 minutes. And now we're gonna go ahead and just load up all the trays. Of course, the door swings open this way, but we're just gonna put all of the trays in here. And one thing about this is the trays are slightly longer one way, so they're only gonna fit in one way. Guess what? I found an extra tray. So we need to just go ahead and quickly load that one up. Okay, so we've got another 7 ounces. So that's gonna make it, what, 84 ounces. And then the last thing we're gonna do is we're gonna just take that strip tray and slide it into the bottom. We'll be back in 4.5 hours. So we're about 2 hours into the dehydrating process, and I wanna go ahead and check this meat. And also, I wanna check something with if it's sticking to these racks. So we're just gonna pull out a couple of these racks. And then I'm gonna close the door to keep the heat in there. And something I wanted to check was, how much does the meat stick to these grates? Because on the smoker, we use those other mats. And here I just put it right on the metal, and this is a very thin meat that has a lot of fat. And so I was worried that, is it gonna stick to this too much? And it looks like, no, it is coming off pretty easily. We may have benefited from using those plastic mats that it came with, but I also wonder, like, if you're using them, like how much airflow are you getting up underneath? Whereas here you can see, I really don't even have to flip these because everything is just, you know, like getting the air from the top and the bottom. Now this one is stuck a little bit, so probably the best thing to do is just lift this up and just kind of push from underneath, and there you go. And if you can just stick your finger in there, we can just really flip it over easy. I'm using gloves here because of the grease, but also these gloves help a little bit with the heat. I bought these on Amazon. They're just nitrile gloves, but they do deflect the heat just a little bit, and these are food safe gloves. But yeah, so it's not sticking too bad, so I'm pretty impressed with this aspect of it. Okay, the carnivore chips are done. We did end up adding about another 30 minutes to the cycle. Let's go ahead and get them out of the dehydrator. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna pull them all down and stack them up, and then we'll take a look at them. So one thing I will say is it's very clean inside. Just taking a look at, there's nothing on the walls, there's no splatter, there's nothing in the back, there's not even anything on the door. The only thing you really have is like a couple of drops right here, and that's from me pulling the trays out. So we don't even have like a big mess to clean up inside of the unit. So let's go ahead, first thing we're gonna do is lay out our paper towels because we need to blot all of these dry. And as I have said in some of the other videos, this is probably the biggest waste, is all of the paper towels we're gonna go ahead and use. But I like the result you get when you blot them dry. First thing I wanted to show you is, this is the drip pan that's in the bottom, and it did catch whatever grease was dripping down. But I'm also gonna say there's not a lot. When you consider that we were basically drying ribeye, which is very high in fat. I expected a lot more, but again, because we're doing this at a low temperature, you're not losing as much fat. That also means that these don't have the shelf life of like a beef jerky because they do have a lot more fat on them. So honestly, the best thing to do if you're gonna dry them like this, even in the smoker, you need to put them in a pouch, like a vacuum seal pouch preferably, with some oxygen absorbers, or store them in the refrigerator because that fat will go rancid. Like once you even open up a package, if you vacuum seal them, you definitely want to store them then in your refrigerator because the fat's going to go rancid. So let's go ahead and pull these off. Let's see what we ended up with. So remember, we started off with 84 ounces of beef before we dried it. So we're just gonna pull all these pieces off. Now this will actually crisp up as they cool down, so they are a little bit softer to the touch when we're first pulling them out of the dehydrator or your smoker. So we've got just about 35 ounces of the ribeye carnivore chips, and we started off with 84 ounces of raw beef, which is right around 5 pounds. And we paid $6 a pound. So that's about $30 for the beef that we started off with. But as far as what we have here, if you were to go online and buy the ones that are already made, they come in 5-ounce bags, and each one of those bags is $40. So this right here would cost you $280. Now, granted, this is not grass-fed, grass-finished, regeneratively farmed beef, but honestly, I'm okay with that when I look at that savings. So for me, this one batch pretty much pays for the dehydrator. So by the second batch, if you're eating a lot of those carnivore chips that you can get online, by the second batch, you've completely paid yourself off. So let's do this. I'm gonna take these, I'm gonna blot them dry, and then we're gonna give them a taste test. Let's go ahead and try one of these as they've cooled down a little bit. They are getting crunchier, and let's see. Let's see if I can get it to show up in the microphone. Yep. So good. perfect amount of salt. My favorite part and Rachel's favorite part is this fat. It's like candy. I'm gonna tell you that the Dehydrator did a very good job. It did take about an extra hour and a half overdoing it in the smoker, but I think it did a great job, especially when you consider the fact that I didn't even rotate the trays. So if you want to look at like having this versus the smoker, it's probably easier in the Dehydrator because I don't have to rotate the trays and stuff. So it did do a great job. If I look at costs, like I said, I've got $280 in Carnivore Chips here. If you look at the retail price of this larger machine, it's around $300. I think we do have a discount coupon. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. And then $30 in beef. So full price on the machine, $330 when you include the beef. Let's say, I don't know, I don't think it's anywhere near this, but let's say it costs you $5 on electricity to run, which again, there's no way it costs that much. And then $3 for an entire roll of paper towels, which again, we didn't use that. So let's say $40 to make the beef plus the machine. That's $340 for $280 of beef on the first batch. So again, by the second batch, I'm completely covered. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually going to let these paper towel like absorb some of this extra grease overnight. I'm gonna put this whole thing into the refrigerator, and then tomorrow I'm gonna pack it up in vacuum sealed bags. And there's one more thing I wanna make in the Dehydrator, and then I'm gonna give you my pros and cons on it. So I had the ribeye chips sit in the refrigerator overnight with the paper towels, and then this morning I got up and I separated them into 4-ounce packages. You can see each one of these bags that I have here has 4 ounces of the meat in there. And then what I did was I put them into these vacuum seal bags. I really like these bags because these bags actually have a zipper on the bottom. So they're already sealed. You fill them up, then we're gonna seal the other end, and then when we wanna eat them, all you gotta do is rip this little tear piece and you can get into them, but then there's still a zipper on there. So if you don't eat the entire batch in one sitting, you can seal it back up, though we do generally eat the entire batch in one sitting. So I'm gonna use my JVR VAC 100 and I'm gonna seal all of these up. The only thing is when I seal these, I'm not gonna pull all of the air out and make it super vacuum sealed, because I find that sometimes it crushes them. Also, the fat will make them all stick together if you put it back into the refrigerator. So what I like to do is just suck probably about 70% of the air out to have a little bit of looseness in there, but it helps them to not go rancid, and also then it seals each bag up. So we're gonna go ahead and turn this on, and then I'm going to go to my programs, which is something I really like about the JVR because you can program it. We have P1, P2. And then I think what we're gonna do is just go ahead and set it for like 7 seconds. We'll go ahead and open this up. Here we go. There we go, that's perfect. So there's a little bit of room in there, but not squeezed to the point where all the meat is starting to break. So we're gonna go ahead and do the rest of these. So the other thing I wanted to try to dehydrate in the London Sunshine 10 tray food dehydrator is some fruit. So I have some fresh strawberries here that I have already washed and sliced up into like 1/4-inch slices. And I also have a few blackberries. So I have some blackberries here, and then I have some other ones that I had already frozen because they were gonna go into the freeze dryer, but I ran out of room. So what I did with those was I actually sliced them in half to see, does that affect the time at all? Because blackberries tend to take a lot longer when you're going to dehydrate them. Now, the other thing I wanted to try with the London Sunshine and see, does it impact anything if I don't load up all of the trays? Because with the meat, we used all 10 trays. We only added an hour of time compared to the smoker, but again, we are also drying at a much lower temperature than we were with the smoker for the meat. So I don't have 10 trays worth of fruit here, so it'll be interesting to see like how does that affect it. So we're going to use these plastic liner things that came with it because the fruit is going to really get small, and also since there's sugar, I'm concerned about it sticking to the wire racks. The one thing I'm noticing with these is there's two sides. There's like a rough side and then there is a smooth side. I'm assuming there's nothing in the instructions that the smooth side is better if you're making like fruit roll-ups, but I'm also concerned that something like the blackberries are going to stick to this one that is rough. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do one tray of each one on the smooth side and one tray on the rough side and see how that works out. So they did give you like a little cookbook, I guess. The recipes probably aren't going to be super keto friendly, but it does give you a dehydrating guide. And it says for strawberries, 8 to 10 hours between 135 and 145 degrees. It doesn't say anything about blackberries on here, but it does say for raspberries, it's 20 to 24 hours at the same temperature, and blueberries is 20 to 24 hours at the same temperature. So we're gonna see how it goes. We'll probably have to pull out the strawberries earlier, but again, they're at the same temperature, so that should not be an issue. So we're gonna go ahead and just start loading these up. We're gonna take, one tray here of strawberries, and we're just gonna lay them out flat. And this one is gonna be the smooth side. So that was the smooth side. Now we're gonna put some of these strawberries on the rough side. So I have one tray of blackberries here that were frozen. So I sliced them all in half, and I wanna see, does that affect the drying time at all? So we're gonna go ahead and put those in a minute. Let's grab one more tray. Those are on the smooth side. And I think we're gonna do these other ones again on the smooth side as well. And we're just gonna lay these on. There's not a lot of them. We're gonna put this one here, and then this one here will go right on the bottom. So one of the things that I wanted to find out is how much electricity does this actually use? Because when it comes to figuring out the cost of making your own meat chips, or drying your own egg whites, or dehydrating fruits and vegetables, you do need to factor in the cost of the electricity for actually running the device. So I have this thing called a kilowatts. I bought this on Amazon. I have a couple of them. I will leave a link for it down below. This is a really cool device because it's gonna tell you how much electricity something is using and also give you an idea of what that's costing you per day. So what you do is you actually plug this into the wall, and then you can set on here the cost of your electricity. So for us, it's fairly expensive at almost 13 cents a kilowatt. So I program in here that it's 0.129 cents per kilowatt, and that doesn't even include their service charge and the base fee. That's just the fuel and the non-fuel charge. So I've entered that in here. So then what you do is you plug this into the wall, you plug your device into here, and then you run it. And when you're done, you can come back and it's gonna tell you this is how much electricity it used. A lot of times it's good to do it for like 24 hours. So if you're looking for like my refrigerator or something like that, like how much is it costing over time? This is a great device. I actually learned that our studio was costing us almost $6 a day if I didn't turn everything off. So give you an idea of what things are. So I've got one of these plugged in. We're gonna go ahead and set this up. So we've got it on. We're gonna set the temperature to 140 degrees because the recipe book says between 135 to 145. So we're gonna split the difference, go at 140 degrees. And then we're gonna set the time. We're gonna start off with, I guess we're gonna go to 8 hours, and then we're gonna come back and check it after that. I have a feeling the blackberries are gonna have to go a lot longer. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and check out these strawberries. And then also, let's go ahead and take a look at these cut blackberries. I scraped them off of the mat, but right now we're gonna call these an epic fail. But since we're gonna run the dehydrator until tomorrow, it's still looking at about 13 hours. We might as well just leave these in there and see if they can recover at all. So go ahead and close that up. And let's take a look at these strawberries. Oh yeah, see now these are dry. So the strawberries came out really good. Took about 10 hours. So we're gonna go ahead and put these into a vacuum seal bag. Okay. So we've got these. We'll stick these into the vacuum sealer, and then we will check on the blackberries tomorrow morning. Okay, the blackberries are done. I have my opinions, but I'm gonna hold off on them until after we taste them. So we have two different kinds. We have the ones that I cut in half, and then we have the whole berries. I will say the ones that I cut in half took a lot less time, but you would expect that they would take less time because we cut them in half and exposed them. So the ones that were whole berries, some of them shriveled up a lot more. I think those were the smaller ones, and then you have some that are very large. So let's go ahead and try them. We're gonna start off with the large one. That is sour. It's sour. I mean, blackberries are a little sour to me, but that is really sour. I don't know if the microphone picked up. They're definitely dry. They're definitely crunchy, but zero sweetness. Let's try a little one. Okay. So the smaller ones, they're much sweeter, a little bit chewier. Those are pleasant. Let's move over to the ones that I cut in half. I need another one of those, because that one was kind of like a half a piece. I want a small one that's like really cut. I may have to change my opinion. I like those. Even though I got a lot of mess to clean up, I'm sure if I just soak this or put it in the dishwasher, it'll clean out, but I like the flavor of these. I like the texture of these better than the whole berries. Okay, here's my opinion. It probably hasn't changed. Here's my opinion. I probably would not do blackberries again in the dehydrator unless one of two things. Number one, you have a lot of blackberries. Maybe you have blackberries growing in your backyard. Or B, you have a bunch of blackberries you want to dehydrate, and you also have a lot of other fruit that is going to take the same amount of time and can be done at the same temperature as the blackberries. And I'm talking about things like strawberry, not strawberries, blueberries or raspberries. Strawberries are much faster. Here's why. It took 30 hours for the whole blackberries to get to this texture. The other ones were done around 22, 24 hours, but to get these whole blackberries, especially these larger ones, to this texture, to be completely dry, it took 30 hours. Along with the 30 hours, I had the kilowatt meter hooked up to the machine to run this machine for 30 hours at the 140 degrees. It used 15.74 kilowatts. I think that was the number. I'm going to have it appear on the screen. And it cost me about $2.05 based on the electricity rates that we have here in South Florida. And again, that does not include the daily surcharge, all that stuff. That's just like the cost for the kilowatts. So I don't have $2 worth of berries here. Now, yes, that included the strawberries, but the strawberries were done after 8 or 9 hours. These took another 20 hours. So that's where I'm saying, if you loaded up all 10 trays with blueberries and raspberries and blackberries, and you were going to run the whole machine for 24 to 30 hours, then I can say, yes, $2 is worth it because I'm getting a lot of dried berries. But to run it for the extra 20 hours for this, it's just, to me, not worth it. I just don't think it's worth it. I mean, I'm glad I tried it. I know not to get blackberries to dehydrate. I might get blackberries to throw in the freeze dryer, but probably not to dehydrate. I'm gonna put these away, and then I wanna go over a couple more things. So let's talk about the London Sunshine 10 tray food dehydrator. Overall, I'm pretty impressed with this, especially when you factor in the price. As I've mentioned before, I used to have an Excalibur, which most people say is like the top of the line. I paid a lot more money for the Excalibur, and that one I believe was only 9 trays, and it was all plastic. This machine is made out of metal. So to me, that is a huge pro, and it's significantly less money than I paid for my Excalibur one. Then you add in the fact that it comes with metal trays, which again, my Excalibur did not have metal trays. I really like the metal trays. They did a great job when I made the Carnivore Chips, and literally all I did was put them into the sink and soak them for like 5 minutes, and everything came off of it. They were great. Then you have the plastic liners. Those plastic liners many times cost more money. And if you go back to my Excalibur, that was the tray. So the fact that that's like in addition to the tray, I really, really like that. The thing that really impressed me the most though was the even heating. Because again, and I know I keep comparing this to the Excalibur, but that is a good reference point for me. When I had the Excalibur, I had to constantly move trays around. I had to go from the bottom to the top, very much like my smoker. I did not rotate one tray in this. It was even heating and dehydrating from the bottom all the way to the top. Even the shelf that's on the very, very top, almost touching the roof of it, everything dehydrated at the same pace. When I look at the Carnivore Chips, I didn't have anything where like one row was less done than the other. I mean, it was great. And the last thing I really liked about this was the ease of cleanup. Honestly, there was no cleanup inside of the unit. We made those fatty ribeye Carnivore Chips, and there was no grease splatter or anything like that. So that was a great thing in itself. But then, it comes with that one tray that you can use for like a fruit roll-up. Though if you're watching this on a keto channel, you're probably not making fruit roll-ups. But it does come with it, and it doubles as a liner for the bottom. And when I made the blackberries, all the blackberry juice, it just dripped down to that. So there was nothing to really clean up, but you can get in there very easily just with a damp rag, a little bit of soap, and wash everything down. So cleaning up was easy. But I do have a couple of cons, but they're small cons. They're kind of nitpicky, but I definitely want to mention them. So let's taking a look at the unit. First of all, if I want to change the time or the temperature, I have to turn on the unit. Not a huge deal. I wish I can set it without turning it on, but I can't. It defaults to 10 hours. I would prefer it default to whatever the last setting I used is. But again, this is a small thing. The next thing is, so when I adjust my time, it adjusts in 30-minute increments, which I'm honestly completely fine, and that's normal for most dehydrators. My real thing comes in with the temperature. And again, this isn't a huge deal, and it can be both a pro and a con. So the lowest temperature is 95 degrees. The next temperature that I can set it at is 104. Then 113, then 122, then 131, then 140, then 149, 158, and 167. Do you see the problem here? When you look at the berries that we made, the recipe book says to do them between 135 and 145. But let's go back. You got the option of 149, 140, or 131. What if I want to dry them at a slower temperature of 135? I can't set it. I would like the temperature settings to be in 1 degree increments. That's what I would really prefer. On the other side, the fact that you have this, it's kind of like certain settings. You're always going to do meat at 167. You don't want to do meat lower than 167 because you want to make sure that you're actually cooking the meat. We got to worry about botulism and things like that. So when we get into the different temperatures, I mean, each one of them is for a certain thing, but I wish you could have individual temperatures. But by having it this way, it does make it a little bit easier to use for a novice because they don't have to think, well, it should be 135, should be 137. They know, hey, I'm doing fruit 140 degrees because they don't want to go too low and they don't want to go any higher. If they go higher, they may end up actually cooking it. The other issue I have with the temperature is I want it to round robin. So if I have my time temperature here, I'm at 149, I can keep hitting this plus button all I want. It's at 167. I wish it would round robin. So in other words, now if I want to go to 95, I gotta keep pressing it. Now, if you press and hold the button, it will go faster. The only other thing with the time I would say is, based on those blackberries, I don't think 24 hours is enough. I wish it was a 36 or a 48 hour timer. So that's gonna be my review of the London Sunshine 10 tray food dehydrator. Like I said, I'm really impressed with it. The way it handled those meat chips alone, top notch. The fact that I didn't have to rotate the shelves, the cleanup, everything about it was great. I'm really excited to be able to do some eggs and things like that in here, and I can't wait to get it set up in the right spot in the garage and just have this thing cranking out meat chips and beef jerky all the time. Now, if you like seeing videos like this, take a look at some of the videos we have linked right over here. Also, make sure you take a look at the most recent video that I'm gonna put right over here. But whether you head this way or you head that way, make sure you head this way. Subscribe to our channel and hit that little bell button. This way you are notified every time we upload a new video. And until next time, bye.